Hello, and welcome to Your Vote Counts, a public informational service program bringing Oregon Secretary of State interviews to you through production by Capital Community Television via remote technology and in collaboration with League of Women Voters of Oregon and League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties. For this race, all candidates were invited and all were accepted. Candidates did not receive the questions developed by the League of Women Voters ahead of time, but the candidates were asked to prepare a 3-minute statement telling about themselves, their qualifications, and their vision for the office if elected. I'm Bernadine Anderson from the League of Women Voters, Marion and Polk County, and I would like to today introduce to you Kim Thatcher, who is running for Oregon Secretary of State, who will now share with you her opening statement.
Thank you. And I thank the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties and CCTV for hosting these candidate interviews. Your vote counts. I've always enjoyed participating in them. It's also wonderful that we have this technology to, especially during these difficult times, to share our points of view and to reach voters. And I also thank you for working through some of these sometimes difficult issues with technology, because this pandemic has certainly changed the tone of the election and campaigning in general. I've heard from so many people concerned, not only about the future of their state and the economy, but also about the safety of their families. And as I see it, people are looking for someone to vote for who has a proven track record of leadership during difficult times like this. And if you look at my experience in both the private and public sectors, you'll see that the role of Secretary of State fits in with my skills. Throughout my time in the legislature, I've served on many committees that have intersected with the functions of the Secretary of State's office. I've probably served on the audits committee longer than just about anybody in the Capitol I can think of, but I've also, as I and another legislator, have served on the Oregon Transparency Commission for the longest period of time. I've also been heavily involved over the years with not only business and elections committees, but also with the Public Records Advisory Commission. I was first elected to the Oregon House in 2004. I'm from Kaiser. I served in the Oregon House for 10 years until I successfully ran for the state Senate, and I am now serving in my second term. Oregon is hurting right now, and there are so many things that the Secretary of State's office can help with. As a business owner, also, my skills come into play because I've managed 2 small businesses in the road construction industry for about 25 years now. And not only handling several large-scale projects and moving parts and people, I see that would also transfer well to running the Secretary of State's office, which is about an $80 million biennium budget, and it has about 200 people. I'm well suited to serve during times of crisis, as I've served during the economic downturn of 2008, and also had a business to navigate through those rocky waters during that time. I see the functions of the Secretary of State's office as largely nonpartisan and managerial and very administrative. So I feel like I've got the skills to, not only treat everybody fairly and give an even hand to administering the law as it applies to that office. I believe I'm the right person to lead with the right skill set at the right time. Because as I was saying, Oregon is hurting right now. There are a lot of challenges that are going to be coming up. And not only our economic health, but our students, our families. But one thing can be said about Oregon: we're resilient. We can come back from this. But my concern is that these are not the last of the emergency situations that we'll be facing. We need to be prepared to face more of these, invisible enemies, if you will, whether it's another virus, a cyber attack, or the big Cascadia earthquake that we are also looking to prepare for. The Secretary of State's office can be key for preparation in these areas, especially when it comes to the function of auditing to ensure that taxpayer money is well spent and focused on core functions of government, because we will be coming up against a big budget shortfall. And we also will need the Small Business Assistance Office that is in place there to help the businesses navigate through that red tape and finding these programs that will help them get back on their feet. We also need to be shoring up and protecting the integrity of our elections. The next Secretary of State needs to have a forward-thinking vision, and I believe I have that experience and vision, and ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you for that background information. Now, we'd like to give you an opportunity to address some questions and topics of concern to Oregonians. You've mentioned the many responsibilities held by the Secretary of State. Which do you consider the most difficult, and which do you think Oregonians know about the least?
Well, obviously they know most about elections and probably the least about the audits. It's kind of surprising that, well, a lot of people don't realize that the Secretary of State's office not only does the financial audits and can audit all levels of government, from city to counties, and, obviously the state as well, but it can do what's called performance audits, which helps really focus taxpayer money in such a way that we make suggestions and recommendations that help the legislature make better decisions, not only with policy, but with budgets. They serve a really a very important function that I don't think a lot of taxpayers know about, but it's very good that we have that that function at the Secretary of State's office, and especially now because we are going to be running into very difficult budget issues with all the unemployment and business closures, and this recession, this COVID-19 pandemic is really going to play a number on us, and we have not felt the full force of that yet. But what the Secretary of State's office can do is divert sources to combing through the budget and looking for those places that maybe we can set aside for now while we focus on the real important things, making sure that we have that safety net there and that we're able to help people get the businesses going again, so that people can be employed, and also helping out with just making sure we're focusing on the core functions of government and spending taxpayer money well. And I think a lot of people might be surprised to know that is one of the functions of the Secretary of State.
One of the events that is occurring is redistricting, and we'd like to know if you support an independent citizens redistricting commission, and what criteria would be important to the existence of that commission.
I have to say that I think the legislature has a bit of a conflict of interest, in my opinion, in drawing the boundaries of where the legislators themselves would be representing. I just think that's a little bit of a conflict. So I would prefer that we change the system somehow. Now, I've heard some of the ideas surrounding an independent commission, or having administrative law judges, or just having a pool of people to choose from. I think all of those have merit. And the reason why is because it introduces an element of independence that I don't think exists right now. And so whether some of these ballot measures that are in the works make it all the way through in November, regardless, if I became Secretary of State and the legislature was not able to come to an agreement on, because that's the existing system, they would have to draw the lines. And if they don't come to an agreement, they send it to the Secretary of State's office. I would not be sitting there with a big old black pen doing this myself. I would be convening a citizens commission of some kind with stakeholders, so that we're bringing in more randomization, not people with conflicts of interest, to determine communities of interest and the best way to draw the boundaries without that element of bias that I think could actually come into play if you leave it completely up to the legislature, which, if those ballot measures don't go through, that's what will happen. But I will try to do what I think these ballot measures are trying to accomplish, and that is introduce that element of independence to redistricting.
There's currently a legislative referral labeled SJR 18 that should come up in November, and it addresses campaign financing. What do you think contribution limits should be, and how should those limits be set up, taking into consideration small donors, labor unions, corporate entities, and political parties?
I don't have a single answer for what I think campaign limits should be, but should the voters approve SJR 18, I would be convening a work group of stakeholders to come up with the best way to attack it. I think it needs to be several points of view entered into this discussion, and I would use one of the bills, one of the Secretary of State's legislative bills, to introduce something for the 2021 session. And hopefully they will give that give that some weight, because it will be from a work group that would be brought together with different points of view and different interests, so that we can, do the best we can and do the right thing with whatever the voters decide in November.
This is a related question. Do you support the requirement that all political advertisements list the identities and the amount of contributions made by the biggest donors? Why or why not?
I think disclosure is a good thing. That is one more element of disclosure. I am not opposed to it. I think sometimes process-wise, and how I've had leftover literature from previous campaigns, that I would like to, save money and not have to, get something reprinted. But so I think about those things that, maybe that person, that entity was not really involved with that particular campaign, but they were in a previous campaign, but still the same message applies, and I still, anyway. So there's little things like that, but I definitely, I love disclosure. I like the thought of disclosing campaign contributions. I would also like to see the Orstar system, where all candidates have to report their expenditures and contributions. I would like to see that, so that whoever's donating to one party through a different name, like sometimes they run a nonprofit, or they have a business, or they change their name and use their middle initial sometimes that doesn't carry through real well on Orstar. So I would like to make it so that it's a little more, so you can follow the money a little more easily. But as far as the disclosure, I'm not opposed.
Going to take a look at a question that involves both the natural world and funding. So what criteria would you use to determine the use of the Elliott State Forest area as a research forest? And what impact do you think that this might have on the Common School Fund?
Well, it's my understanding that the Elliott State Forest was costing the school fund. And so there was, some sort of deal put together through bonding. There's a number, there's just so much information out there, and so many different options and different directions that one could take. I would just be taking in the information from the people who have lived this, and the people who are in the know on this particular issue and school funding. We definitely want to make sure that we're not costing this common school fund. We want to make sure that we're there using our forests, using our lands, such that we can pay for things and be self-sufficient, not only putting people back to work, but helping our state be self-sufficient. Now, when it, like when it comes to votes on the land board, that's when you just have to take in this information and make the best decision. And I would be, I guess I would say, biased towards using our lands responsibly so that we can support our schools, support our working, the people of Oregon, and be self-sufficient. So.
You mentioned in your introductory remarks about unexpected events. So how would you make Oregon's election system more resilient considering the impact of natural disasters and cyber attacks?
Well, more resilient. I think we're way ahead of much of the nation in that we have the vote by mail system in place and have had so for many years. I've had discussions with one of my local county clerks, and he's mentioning that we'll be able to hold this election just fine. We might be a little slow on hearing what the results are because of the physical distancing and some of the different requirements that are in place now because of COVID-19. But as far as resilience, maybe you're talking, I'm not sure if you're talking about earthquakes or whatever, but we have 36 different county clerks that are in charge of logging the votes that come to their county. And so it's good that we don't have it too centralized, because that would mean it would be easier to hack. And so we have these 36 different systems, and that kind of introduces a good layer of protection as far as cybersecurity. So when you're talking about resilience in our elections, I think we're doing pretty well in this particular crisis to keep our elections running, keep them going. We're going full steam ahead as far as I know. And the only little hiccup's going to be in counting, making sure that we're getting the right numbers out to people and letting the media know and people know what the results are. It'll be a little slower.
Thank you. There's lots to know about the Secretary of State's office. And we want to thank you, Candidate Thatcher, for your interview today and for sharing all these thoughts.
Well, thank you. And I thank the League of Women Voters and CCTV as usual. And if people want to know any more about my campaign, please visit kimthatcher.com.
Thanks to Capital Community Television Media for their extensive technology and program skills used to create this presentation. Thank you to League of Women Voters of Oregon and Marion-Polk counties for the question development and for the interviewers. And thanks to you, the public, for watching in order to become a more informed voter. For more voter information, please go online to Vote 411. You have until April 28th to register or make registration adjustments. Ballots will be mailed out at the beginning on April 29th and will continue through the first week of May. Postmarks are not accepted, so get them in early. Elections matter. Remember to vote because your vote counts.